Chapter 1. The first time the sky refused us, no one panicked. Crops fail, rivers thin, seasons turn wrong. It happens. People grumbled, yes, but they still laughed, still baked bread, still gathered in the square at dusk like nothing had changed. "We've survived worse," they said. "We always do." By the second week, the laughter stopped. The ground hardened beneath our feet, and everyone started panicking. They all blamed the Fae. They were convinced that this was a lesson, and they believed that we needed to offer something to the Fae. I knew something was wrong before they said my name. It was the way the village went quiet when I stepped into the square. Not the normal kind of quiet, no laughter, no idle chatter, but the kind that presses against your ears, heavy, waiting, watching. I stopped just past the well, my fingers tightening around the handle of the water bucket. No one met my eyes at first. That was worse than if they had glared. At least anger was honest. This was something else. Fear. And underneath it, something sharper. Decision. My stomach twisted. "Reven?" I said, turning towards the village chief and forcing my voice steady. "What's going on?" He stood at the center, hands clasped behind his back like he was about to give a sermon instead of ruin someone's life. His gaze lifted slowly, landing on me with a weight that made my chest tighten.
"Come forward, Lysandra."
My name sounded wrong in his mouth. Too formal. Too final. I didn't move right away. A few heads turned. A few whispers slipped through the crowd. I caught pieces of them. Fae touched. Strange girl. Those eyes. My jaw tightened. I'd heard it all before. I stepped forward anyway. The ground felt uneven beneath my feet, like something had already shifted, and I was just now realizing I was standing on broken ground. "What is this?" I asked. No one answered, not Hella, who used to press extra bread into my hands when she thought no one was looking. Not old Tam, the village elder who told stories by the fire and always let me sit closer than the others. Not even the girl I'd saved that morning. There had been a strange creature close to the veil. The veil separated the humans from the Fae, and the creature had been about to attack her, but I stopped it. Now she stood near her mother, her arm wrapped in clean cloth, her face pale and tear-streaked. When her eyes met mine, she looked like she wanted to say something. She didn't. Her mother's hand tightened on her shoulder. Silence again. It stretched long enough to feel deliberate. Then Reven spoke.
"There was a bargain made."
The words landed wrong. Too calm, too clean. My grip on the bucket tightened. What kind of bargain? His eyes didn't leave mine.
"The kind that keeps the crops alive."
Something cold slid down my spine. "No," I said immediately. "No, you don't get to speak in riddles. Say it." A flicker passed through the crowd. Discomfort, guilt. No one stepped in. No one stopped this. Reven exhaled slowly, like this was an inconvenience to him.
"The rains failed,"
he said.
"The river thinned. The livestock began to die. You saw it as well as we did."
"I also saw people survive it," I snapped. "We always do."
"Not this time."
His voice sharpened just slightly.
"Not without help."
My heart started to pound. "What did you do?" No one answered. Not right away. But I saw it then, in their faces, in the way they looked at me, not as one of them, not as a neighbor, not even as a problem, as a solution. A sick, hollow feeling opened in my chest. "You didn't," I said, quieter now. Reven's gaze didn't waver.
"We made an offering."
The words rang in my ears. An offering. Like I wasn't standing right there, like I wasn't breathing. "Of what?" I asked. even though something inside me already knew. He didn't hesitate.
Of you.
The world didn't shatter. That's what I expected. Some kind of break, some kind of collapse. But it didn't. Everything stayed exactly the same. The square, the people, the sound of wind moving through the trees. Only I changed. Something inside me went very, very still. "You're joking," I said. No one laughed, not even a nervous one. I looked around, waiting for someone to say something, to step forward, to fix this. Hella looked down. Old Tam wouldn't meet my eyes. The girl I saved started crying again. No one spoke. "I pulled her out of a feyhound's mouth this morning," I said, my voice rising before I could stop it. I bled for her. I saved her. My chest tightened, breath coming faster now. "And this is what you do?" Reven's expression hardened.
You interfered with something you didn't understand.
"I stopped it from killing her."
You drew its attention here.
The words hit harder than they should have, because they weren't entirely wrong. But that didn't make this right. "You don't get to blame me for that," I said, shaking my head. "You don't get to—"
We had no choice.
That was what broke it, that phrase. Simple, clean, cowardly. My laugh came out sharp and wrong. "You always have a choice,"
No,
he said.
we had you.
Silence slammed down again. I stared at him, at all of them, and something inside me cracked. Not my pride, not my strength, just that small, stupid part of me that thought this place could ever be home. "How long?" I asked. My voice sounded distant, even to me. The Reeve hesitated.
A messenger came 3 nights ago.
3 nights. 3 nights they had known. 3 nights they had looked at me, spoken to me, accepted my help, my labor, and said nothing. My fingers curled slowly into fists. That hurt more than anything else. Not the exile, not the fear. I nodded once, slowly, like I understood, like I accepted it. They relaxed. I saw it happen. Just a little. Just enough. That was their mistake. Because then I smiled, not kindly, not softly, something sharper, something that made a few of them shift where they stood. "Then I hope it rains," I said. My voice was quiet, steady. "And I hope every drop reminds you what it cost." Reven gestured. 2 men stepped forward. I didn't fight them, not yet. Let them think I was done. Let them believe it. They bound my wrists too tight. The rope bit into my skin, rough and unforgiving. Still, I didn't flinch. Didn't give them that. As they pushed me toward the cart, I caught one last glimpse of the girl. Her eyes were wide, wet, guilty. Good. She should remember. The wheels started moving. No one stopped it. No one spoke. And as the village disappeared behind me, I pressed my thumb into the notch of my ring. Hard, grounding, anchoring. My aunt's voice echoed in my head, soft but certain. "You are something they don't understand, Lysandra, and this village will show you the cost of being different if you don't leave." I should have listened to her. Now, I stared straight ahead, into the trees, into the dark, into whatever waited for me beyond the veil. Chapter 2. At the veil, I saw him. A hooded man stood just beyond it, on the Fey side. I assumed he was the messenger they had spoken about, but his build didn't match the idea of one. He wasn't slight or unassuming. He was tall, very tall, broad-shouldered, built like someone meant to fight, not deliver messages. The 2 men from my village didn't hesitate. They shoved me forward, past the veil, and into the Fey's side without looking back. As my body crossed it, I braced myself. Everyone always said crossing the veil did something to you, that it changed you, that it made people mad, that something inside you shifted the moment you stepped through, and if Fae crossed it, something happened to them too. That was why no one ever did. Humans stayed on one side. Fae stayed on the other. I felt nothing, no shift, no pull, no tearing, no change. I stood there for a second, breathing, waiting for something to happen, and when nothing did, I realized why. Of course, I was half Fae, half human, a tether to both worlds. The very reason the village treated me the way they did. The reason they never truly saw me as one of their own. The man cleared his throat. I looked up at him. His face was still hidden beneath the hood, shadowed completely. I couldn't see his eyes. I didn't understand how he could see through it. But he was looking at me. I could feel it.
"Follow me,"
he muttered. I didn't argue. I pretended to obey. But the moment I got a chance, I would run. I didn't know the details of the bargain my village leaders made with him. I didn't know why the Fae would agree to take a half-Fae, half-human as payment. I didn't know anything except one thing. I wasn't going to be their sacrifice. He turned and started walking. I followed, quiet, careful. He didn't speak again, not once. This large, broad-shouldered man moved like silence itself. No wasted movement, no hesitation, just forward. Which was odd because a man that was almost 7 feet tall, and as big as a boulder, should not be able to move that quietly. It made something uneasy settle in my chest. I needed to get away from him. "I need to go urinate," I said. He stopped, turned slowly to face me. Even without seeing his eyes, I could feel the weight of his stare. He tilted his head slightly, like he didn't understand, or worse, like he didn't care. Like he was telling me to just do it where I stood. I put my hand on my hip, lifting my chin. "I might be a sacrifice," I said, letting irritation sharpen my voice. "But I'm still a lady. You can't watch me do it." He exhaled, a quiet, annoyed sound, and if I could see his eyes, I was sure he would have rolled them. But he turned and walked away, not far. Just enough to give me space, just enough to be out of sight. That was all I needed. The second I was sure he wasn't watching, I turned and bolted back toward the veil. My feet barely made a sound against the ground. Light, fast. My heart slammed against my ribs, but it wasn't fear. It was hope. If I could just cross back over, I could leave. I didn't need the village anymore. I didn't need them to accept me. I could go somewhere else, somewhere new, somewhere no one knew my name. It was dark. Most people would be asleep. I could disappear, start over. My mother had been human. She grew up in that village. Everyone knew her. That was the only reason they tolerated me for as long as they did. My father had been Fae. They met before the veil was created, back when humans and Fae were still something close to peaceful. Not friends, not equals, but not enemies either. A relationship between both species was still frowned upon, so he hid what he was, glamored himself into something softer, something human enough to pass without questions. That's what my aunt told me, that he chose my mother anyway, that he stayed even after the veil rose and split the world in two, trapping him on the human side with her. They built something out of that, something fragile, but real enough to try, until I ruined it. My mother nearly died bringing me into the world. I've heard the story enough times to see it clearly, her screaming, the midwife panicking, blood where there shouldn't have been so much of it. My father ran to find a healer, ran fast enough that no one could stop him, but he never came back. My mother died anyway, and I lived. Wrong. Not enough Fae to belong to his world, not human enough to be safe in hers. I didn't have the ears or the uncanny appearance or the strange, ethereal pull people whispered about when they spoke of the Fae. But my eyes were enough to make people uncomfortable. Too sharp. Too still. Too much like something watching instead of something living. At first, they ignored it. They knew my mother. That bought me time. Then my aunt kept me safe. That bought me more. Then she died, and the space she left behind swallowed everything that had been protecting me. I tried after that. I really did. I worked harder than anyone, learned faster, helped wherever I could. If something needed doing, I was already there. I thought if I made myself useful enough, necessary enough, they would forget what I was, or at least stop caring. I was wrong. And now I didn't care either. I just needed to get out. I would go to another village, somewhere bigger, somewhere no one knew my mother's name or my father's absence, somewhere I could be just another face in a crowd instead of something watched. I would start over. Footsteps, movements. The sound cut through everything. Too close, too steady. Not rushed, not panicked. Certain. I slowed without meaning to, my breath catching as I turned slightly, listening harder. The excitement that had been pushing me forward twisted into something sharper. Oh no. It's the Fae messenger. He's coming. I can't get away like this. Not like this. I would have to fight him. But when I turned around, it wasn't the Fae messenger I saw. Chapter 3. What I saw was a beast, its body too large, too wrong, scales catching the dim light like molten metal while smoke curled from between its jagged teeth. Its eyes burned like embers buried deep beneath ash, and when it breathed, the air itself seemed to recoil as if it knew what was coming. The beast lunged, but I dived to the side. I have fought Fae beasts before, but not like this one. This was bigger, meaner, wrong in a way I could feel in my bones. It opened its mouth, and at the back of its throat, fire. Yes, fire. I saw it gather, a molten glow building deep inside before it whooshed forward, burning the exact spot where my body had been a second ago. Heat licked across my skin, sharp and violent, stealing the air from my lungs. I tried to move again, but when I dived, my dress caught on a jagged piece of wood. I yanked forward, but it held. My leg twisted awkwardly, pain shooting up my shin where it had slammed against the wood. I sucked in a breath, panic clawing its way up my throat as I looked up. The beast was preparing again. I could see it. The fire was gathering at the back of its throat, shimmering, building, ready to be released. No. No, no, no. I reached for my dress, fingers shaking as I began to pull it off, tearing at the fabric, desperate to free myself. If I could just get loose, if I could just move. But deep down, I knew there was no point. By the time the dress came off, I would already be ash. This is it. I was going to die. My mother would have died for nothing. The thought hit harder than the fear, harder than the pain, harder than the heat that was about to swallow me whole. I ripped the dress free at last, stumbling forward, expecting, waiting for the fire. But it never came. I froze. The beast wasn't moving, not frozen like still, frozen like ice, encased, trapped, completely still, its massive body locked in a shell of glistening frost that hadn't been there a second ago. I stared, my mind struggling to catch up. What is happening? The forest had gone quiet. Too quiet. I stood there, naked, breath uneven, my heart still racing as I tried to understand why I wasn't dead. Slowly, I lifted my gaze. And that was when I saw him. Standing beside the beast like it was nothing. A Fae. Tall. Broad. just as large as the Fey messenger, wearing the same dark, intricate clothing, except his hood was down. Wait, I gasped. He was the Fey messenger. Actually, suddenly I wished he still had his hood on, because his face, it was unfair. Beautiful, yes, but not in the soft way people sometimes meant it. There was nothing delicate about him. His features were sharp, defined, almost carved, like something made to be admired and feared at the same time. My eyes lingered longer than they should have. Longer than I meant them to. I couldn't stop looking. I had assumed that because of how big he was, his face would be rough and ugly. But no, he was anything but that. For a moment, I forgot everything. Then he cleared his throat, and the reality of my situation crashed over me all at once. I was naked, standing right in front of him. His gaze dropped, slow, unhurried, from my face to my shoulders, lower. Heat flooded my face as I gasped, scrambling for my dress and pulling it over myself as quickly as I could. But I felt it, the weight of his gaze, the way it lingered, assessing, deliberate. He smirked and inclined his head slightly, as if to say, not bad. My stomach twisted. I shoved my arms through the sleeves, yanking the fabric into place, trying to cover myself, trying to erase what had just happened. But when I looked back at him, he was still smirking. Worse now. Then, as if remembering something, his expression shifted. Not completely, but enough. Cold again. Controlled.
The next time you think about trying to escape,
He said, his voice low, even, carrying a quiet authority that made my spine straighten without permission.
make sure you know how to fight a draarag.
And just like that, he turned. No hesitation, no glance back, walking away like he already knew I would follow. And he was right. After that thing, I wouldn't dare try to escape, not anymore. I glanced back once at the frozen beast, the draarag, and swallowed hard before forcing my legs to move, trailing after him. I didn't know what a draarag was, but clearly it was that fire-breathing monster. And he had stopped it like it was nothing. Ice. That fast, that powerful. I had heard stories about Fae having elemental abilities. Fire, water, ice, earth, even the sky itself bending to their will. That was why my village had bargained with them, why they had believed the Fae could bring rain. But this was something else. Was every Fae that powerful? Or was it just him? And if it was just him, how was he only a messenger? I kept walking, trying to ignore the throbbing pain in my shin, but each step made it worse. The impact from earlier had already begun to swell, the skin tightening, protesting every movement. I clenched my jaw and pushed through it, refusing to fall behind. But I was falling behind. Farther, farther. He stopped, turned.
Can you walk fast?
His words cut off. His gaze dropped, to my leg, to the swelling, to the way I was limping. He sighed. Before I could react, he closed the distance between us, reached down, and lifted me off the ground like I weighed nothing, and then threw me over his shoulder, like a sack of rice. I gasped, my hands instinctively bracing against his. "Put me down! Put me down, now!" I snapped, hitting his back with as much force as I could manage. He didn't budge. Didn't even slow down. If anything, his grip tightened slightly, steadying me as I struggled. The audacity. I might be a sacrifice, but I am not a sack of rice. I said, "Put me down, you overgrown, human-shaped bat." There was a pause. Then, a slight shake beneath me. I blinked. Was he? I gasped again. He was laughing, quiet at first, low, controlled, but unmistakable. I twisted slightly, trying to look at him, but my position made it nearly impossible. All I could see was the dark fabric of his clothes, the steady rise and fall of his shoulders as that quiet laughter continued.
That
He said, his voice threaded with amusement.
was quite creative.
I scowled, shifting against his shoulder, trying to regain some dignity that was already long gone. "Put me down!" I snapped again, less sharp this time, more irritated than anything else. "I can walk,"
You were limping.
he said simply. I was managing.
You were slowing me down.
The words were blunt, unapologetic. I clenched my jaw. "Then leave me behind," I muttered. "Wouldn't that solve your problem?" He didn't respond, didn't even hesitate, just kept walking, steady, unbothered, like my weight meant nothing, like my protests meant even less. "Can you at least tell me where you are taking me?" I asked, trying to keep the edge out of my voice. Trying and failing.
The palace.
He said simply. The word settled in my chest, heavy and unfamiliar. Palace. Not a pit, not a forest clearing, not some hidden place where sacrifices were dragged and forgotten. A palace. "Why?" I asked, frowning. "And why did you accept me as a bargain?"
You ask too many questions.
He said. His grip tightened slightly. Not enough to hurt, just enough to remind me how easily he could.
Stay quiet,
He added, voice dropping just enough to send a chill down my spine.
or I'll put you to sleep.
I didn't ask how. I didn't want to know. I went still against him, biting back anything else I wanted to say, the questions still burning at the back of my throat. So I stayed quiet. But my mind didn't. Because none of this made sense. I was supposed to be a sacrifice, not this, not carried, not protected, not taken to a palace. My fingers curled slightly against the fabric of his clothes as the thought settled deeper, heavier. If I wasn't being brought there to die, then what exactly was I being brought there for? Chapter 4. I didn't even realize it when sleep took me. But when I woke, I wasn't flung over his shoulders anymore. Instead, I was nestled against his chest. We were on a horse. I didn't even remember getting on one. The steady rhythm of its movement was what pulled me awake. The warmth of his body beneath me grounding in a way I didn't expect. He looked down at me. There was a faint smile on his lips. But the moment he realized I was awake, watching, he masked it. Just like that. Gone. Replaced with that same controlled, distant expression he always wore. Before I could ask him what he was staring at, the horse slowed, then stopped, and when I looked up, I forgot everything else. We stood before massive gates carved from dark stone, vines of silver twisting through them like they had grown there naturally. Beyond them rose a palace that looked less built and more formed, its towers stretching elegantly into the sky, glass and stone blending seamlessly with the forest around it, glowing faintly like it held its own light. The gates opened. Not slowly, or reluctantly. They opened like they had been waiting. I didn't need anyone to tell me where we were. The palace. Men approached the horse and bowed deeply.
"Welcome home, Princess. Welcome, General."
I froze. My mind stuttered. Princess? I twisted slightly, craning my neck to look up at him, to see if he would react, if he would correct them, if he would laugh. But he didn't. He didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked annoyed. He stepped down from the horse, then held his hands up toward me. I hesitated for a fraction of a second before taking them, letting him help me down. The moment my feet touched the ground, he released me and dismissed the men with a flick of his hand. And that was when I saw it. Welcome home, Princess Lysandra. The words stretched across the entrance in large, elegant script. I stared at it. What? I muttered. Then I turned to him, my chest tightening. My words rushed. What is this? Why? How? What is going on? Why is my name written on there? He didn't respond. Answer me, I said, sharper this time.
Because you are Princess Lysandra of Arendelle.
I scoffed, shaking my head immediately. Well, yes, I see that it's written there, but I am not a princess. You all must be mistaken. My mother was the former chief's daughter, and my father is some low-born fae. I'm telling you, I'm not the princess.
No,
He said calmly.
your father isn't a low-born fae. He's the crown prince of Arendelle, the heir to the queen's throne, which makes you the princess of Arendelle.
I stared at him, then shook my head again. No, I said, more firmly this time. No, this has to be some kind of joke. If I was a princess, then why did you talk to me that way? Why did you treat me like a sack of rice? He smirked.
Well,
He said, voice laced with quiet amusement.
you are a princess, not a god.
I stared at him. That was not an answer. If I was really the princess, I pressed, why did you take so long to bring me here? And where is my father? The words came out sharper than I intended, but I didn't care. I'd like to give that bastard a piece of my mind for leaving me and my mother. He turned to me then, actually looked at me, surprised.
You don't know?
I frowned, shaking my head. Know what? He didn't answer, not directly. Instead, he said,
The queen is waiting. But first, we need to get you dressed.
and just like that, he turned and walked away, leaving me standing there with more questions than before. He led me through the palace, the halls wide and impossibly grand, the walls lined with intricate carvings that seemed to move if I looked too long. Everything shimmered faintly, like magic lived in the very stone. Then he brought me into a room, placed a dress in my hands, and stepped back. I looked at him, waiting, expecting him to turn. He didn't. He just stared, then sighed.
It's nothing I haven't seen before.
He said.
Just get dressed.
I almost scoffed. The audacity. But he turned around anyway, and I shook my head, slipping into the dress as quickly as I could. I had just started on my hair when the door burst open. A woman swept in, plump, beautiful, radiating energy like the room had been waiting for her. Before I could react, she wrapped her arms around me in a tight embrace, her words tumbling over each other.
Oh, hello, Princess. I'm Paloma, the head maid. I'm so happy to see you. Oh goodness, you are so lovely, you're so beautiful, and you look just like your father.
I barely had time to breathe before she pulled back, eyes widening as she realized she was crushing me.
Oh, forgive me,
She said quickly, stepping away. Then she turned, sharp as anything, toward him.
General, why did you not call for me to dress her?
Paloma, we do not have time. Her Majesty is waiting.
Oh, please.
She waved him off.
I'm sure Her Majesty would prefer to see her looking presentable, General Nevhan.
General. There it was again. I glanced at him. Really looked this time. At his build, his presence, the way he carried himself. Of course, he wasn't a messenger. He was a general. Before either of us could argue, Paloma grabbed my wrist and pulled me away. The next few minutes were chaos, warm water, scrubbing, lathering, drying. She chased Nevhan out of the room without hesitation, applied rouge to my cheeks, fixed my hair. And then she brought out a completely different dress. The one he gave me was forgotten. This one was something else entirely. Soft green, flowing, light. It hugged my waist, then fell effortlessly to the floor, the fabric catching the light in a way that made it seem almost alive. The sleeves were sheer, delicate, brushing against my skin like mist. My hair fell loose down my back, and for the first time, since they said my name, since they called me a sacrifice, since everything changed, I looked at myself. And I didn't see the strange girl, the one whispered about, the one tolerated, the one given away. I looked, and for the first time, I felt like a princess. Chapter 5. Lysandra. While still staring at myself in the mirror, the door suddenly flung open.
Paloma, the queen is waiting.
But he didn't finish his sentence. He stopped mid-step, his gaze locking onto me like he had forgotten why he came in the first place. His mouth parted slightly, his expression caught somewhere between surprise and something I couldn't quite name. Under the weight of it, my cheeks suddenly felt hot, the kind of heat that crept up slowly and betrayed you without permission. Paloma turned, immediately catching the moment, her lips curving into a knowing smile.
You like what you see, eh, General?
He went red instantly.
I wasn't...
He stuttered, the words tangling before they could fully form. He exhaled sharply instead, as if giving up on recovering whatever dignity he had left, then muttered under his breath, refusing to look at me again.
Let's go.
I followed after him, but he kept his gaze fixed ahead, rigid, deliberate, as if looking at me again would undo him entirely. The walk through the palace halls felt longer than it should have, the silence between us stretching, heavy but not entirely uncomfortable. When we finally reached a set of towering double doors, carved with intricate fey symbols that seemed to shimmer faintly under the light, he stopped and turned to me.
The court can be cruel,
He said, his voice quieter now, steadier.
Whatever the queen does or says to you, or how she treats you, know that it is not a reflection of how she feels.
He paused, as if debating whether to say more, then added, softer.
You look beautiful, by the way.
Another pause.
You always do, even when you were covered in grime. But now...
His gaze flickered over me briefly before he forced it away again.
Now you look like the future queen you're meant to be.
For a second, I stood there frozen, the weight of his words settling somewhere deep in my chest, confusing and unexpected. But I didn't have time to process it, because in the next moment, he pushed the doors open. The throne room unfolded before me in overwhelming grandeur, vast and impossibly tall, its ceilings arched like the inside of a cathedral and lined with gold-veined stone that seemed to glow softly in the light. Rows of nobles filled the space, draped in silks and jewels, their presence sharp and suffocating, and as one, their heads turned toward me, their eyes gleaming with curiosity, judgment, and something far less kind.
Princess Lysandra of Arendelle,
The usher announced, his voice echoing across the room. I stood still for a moment, because at the far end of it all, seated upon the throne, was her. The queen. The woman who was my supposed grandmother. She was beautiful in a way that didn't feel entirely real, her features smooth and untouched by time, her posture regal and effortless. She looked no more than 10 years older than I was, which made sense. Fae age very slowly, and once they reach 25, time seems to loosen its grip on them entirely. But her eyes were something else. Ancient. Calculating. The kind that saw everything and forgave nothing. Nevin gestured subtly for me to move forward, and I snapped out of my thoughts, forcing my feet to carry me across the polished floor. But it was too late. I heard them, the snickering, the whispers, the quiet cruelty that wasn't meant to be hidden very well at all.
Half human.
this is supposed to be the future queen?
How unrefined.
Didn't she grow up in a village?
So she's basically a peasant.
One voice said louder than the rest, confident and unapologetic, cutting through the others like a blade. I kept walking, my spine stiff, my chin held just high enough to keep from looking like I might break under it. Nevan shifted his hand slightly in my peripheral vision, a silent instruction. To bow. I did. But not correctly, and they noticed. Of course they did.
Is that how she was taught to bow?
What is she doing?
Some princess she is.
The whispers grew louder, bolder, feeding off each other, until it felt like the entire room was pressing in on me. I straightened slowly, forcing myself not to look around, not to react, not to give them anything more than they had already taken. The queen's gaze dragged over me, slow and unimpressed, assessing every inch like I was something she had been forced to consider but already decided against. Her lip curled slightly.
I guess your human side overpowers your fey one,
she said, her voice sharp and cold. Then she turned her attention to Nevhan.
Nevan, teach your betrothed some manners and etiquette before the summer solstice. If she shows up in my presence in this manner again, I shall rethink your position in this court.
Betrothed. The word hit harder than anything else that had been said. She dismissed us with a lazy wave of her hand, as if I was no longer worth even her attention. But my mind was no longer in that room. Betrothed? What? How? Had I heard wrong? I looked at Nevhan, searching his face for even a flicker of surprise, of denial, anything that might tell me this was some misunderstanding. There was nothing, only that same controlled, unreadable expression. As we stepped out of the throne room and the doors closed behind us, sealing away the whispers and the laughter, I turned to him sharply. Betrothed. He nodded once, grim. You didn't think to tell me this? I demanded, anger rising fast now, sharp and uncontrollable. How dare you presume to choose me as your wife when you don't even know me, have never seen me, and you don't even know if I'll accept it?
I had no say in this, Lysandra,
he said evenly.
My father and yours were good friends. Besides, my family has strong ties and political power. It was an alliance sought before there was any idea of you existing. It was a bargain agreed upon.
His gaze held mine.
That cannot be broken.
What? I whispered, the word barely leaving my lips as another realization settled in, cold and bitter. Of course, my bastard of a father had found yet another way to control something he had long since abandoned. We can break it, I pressed. There has to be a way. Nevhan shook his head. Then, without a word, he turned slightly and revealed the space behind his ear. There, barely noticeable unless you were looking for it, was a small mark in the shape of a ring.
This is the bargain mark,
he said.
Once a bargain is completed, it disappears. A marriage bargain stays. It always looks like this.
His eyes flicked to mine.
You have one too.
I don't, I said immediately, shaking my head. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. I had never seen the back of my own ear, never had a reason to, and something about the certainty in his voice made it hard to deny outright. But why didn't you tell me? I asked, quieter now. He exhaled, some of the tension leaving his shoulders.
Honestly, I didn't know how. When I was told, I hated the idea of it. Marrying someone I do not know.
He paused, his jaw tightening slightly.
It's why I was so cold to you. I resented you. And honestly, I wanted you to hate me. I thought if the hatred was mutual, maybe the bargain would fade.
I stared at him for a moment, then let out a small breath. Well, if you wanted me to hate you, you're doing a terrible job. That caught him off guard. You carried me when my ankle was broken and my shins swollen, I continued. Even if you claim it was because I was slowing you down, You let me sleep against you. You warned me about what would happen in that room before we went in. Yes, you were cold at first, but your actions since then have been nothing but kind. So why? He glanced back toward the throne room doors, then at me again, his expression softer now, though still guarded.
Those nobles in there are why I chose not to,
He said quietly.
After you tried to escape, and I saw your ankle, I realized it wasn't your fault, that we were in something neither of us wanted.
A brief pause.
And you're already going to have people treating you coldly. There's no point in me being one of them.
Then, after a beat, a faint smile touched his lips.
Besides, your looks might have swayed me a bit.
He let out a low whistle. I couldn't help it. I laughed. It slipped out of me before I could stop it, light and unexpected. He watched me, something like amusement flickering across his face, and for a moment, the tension between us shifted into something easier, something almost natural. He led me through the palace after that, to the room I would be staying in, explaining that it was different from the one I had dressed in earlier. Along the way, I asked him questions about the Fae, about the court, about things I didn't understand, and he answered all of them patiently, never once making me feel foolish for asking. When we finally reached my door, he took my hand and pressed a brief kiss against it, lingering just a second longer than necessary, like he didn't quite want to let go. Then he stepped back and left. I pushed the door open slowly, expecting to finally take in the room that was now meant to be mine. But instead, I stopped, because someone was already inside, someone I never expected. Chapter 6. Sitting at the center of the bed was the Fae Queen, my grandmother. I stopped at the doorway, my hand still resting against the wood as my body went rigid. For a second, I didn't move, didn't breathe, didn't even think properly. What is she doing here? Has she come to degrade me a little more? Because if so, I already felt the anger rising in my chest, sharp and reckless, the kind that would get me thrown back across the veil for treason before the night was over. But she didn't speak. She didn't sneer. She didn't look at me the way she had in the throne room. Instead, something caught my eye. A shimmer. At the corner of her eyes. I frowned slightly, stepping further into the room without realizing it, my anger faltering under confusion. Was she— No, that couldn't be. But then I saw it again. A tear. Then another, and suddenly there was no denying it. The Queen was crying. Not quietly, not subtly. She was sobbing. My breath caught, disbelief crashing over me so hard it left me standing there like I had forgotten how to move. This was the same woman who had looked at me like I was something beneath her just moments ago. The same woman whose voice had cut through me like I was nothing. And now? Now she looked broken.
You look so much like him,
she said between sobs, her voice trembling in a way that felt too real to fake. I stared at her. I didn't know what to say, didn't know what to do, because nothing about this made sense. She drew in a shaky breath, as if realizing how she looked, and slowly, painfully, began to gather herself again. The tears didn't stop completely, but she straightened, wiping at them with a quiet dignity that somehow made it worse.
I'm sorry for what I said in the throne room earlier,
she said, her voice steadier now, though still heavy with emotion.
I know you have no reason to listen to me, but trust me when I say it's all for a good reason.
I said nothing. I couldn't. Because I didn't understand how the same woman who had humiliated me in front of an entire court was now sitting on my bed, apologizing, and crying. I thought of Nevin's words. The court can be cruel, whatever she says. It is not a reflection of how she feels. My gaze shifted back to her, and for the first time, I wondered if he had been telling the truth.
I know you have questions,
She continued softly.
and I am here to answer them.
She gave me a small, almost fragile smile.
Take a seat. I won't bite, I promise.
I hesitated. Then slowly, cautiously, I moved closer and sat down across from her, close enough to see the way her hands trembled slightly, close enough to see the grief she wasn't hiding anymore. She reached out and took my hand. The contact startled me, but I didn't pull away. Her grip tightened slightly, as if grounding herself.
More than 2 decades ago,
She began, her gaze lowering to our joined hands.
before the veil, your father told me about his human lover, your mother.
Her lips pressed together briefly, something conflicted flashing across her face.
He told me he wanted to marry her, make her his crown princess.
She exhaled slowly.
I was furious.
Her fingers tightened around mine.
I forbade it. I told him he could take your mother as a lover, but he could not marry her, because if he did, she would one day become queen, and our rule in the court was already fragile.
Her voice hardened slightly at that, like it was a decision she had justified 1,000 times.
He agreed.
A pause.
Or at least, he made me believe he did.
Her eyes lifted to mine.
But he went to the human lands anyway.
My chest tightened.
When the humans and the witches joined forces to build the veil, no one knew about it. Not the Fae, not even most humans. It was done in secrecy.
Her voice dropped.
Your father didn't know.
I swallowed, a strange unease settling in my chest.
A spy I had in the human palace told me the veil would be put up that night.
She continued.
I immediately went to find your father. I wanted to warn him, to bring his lover before it was too late, before she was trapped on the other side. Forever.
Her grip on my hand tightened again.
But I found out he had already gone.
A flicker of pain crossed her face.
Out of anger toward me.
Silence stretched for a moment before she continued.
I sent 2 of my fastest Fae after him. One had teleportation magic. The other had the power of invisibility. They should have reached him in time.
Her voice broke.
They didn't.
I felt my breath hitch.
The veil was completed before they could return. Your father and the 2 Fae I sent were trapped there.
I stared at her. Shock. Confusion. Something deeper. Something I didn't want to name yet. I wanted to be angry at her. For forbidding the marriage. For everything that had led to this. But something told me there was more. More she hadn't said yet. More truths buried under everything she had just revealed. So instead, I asked, "Why did you wait this long to get me?" My voice came out quieter than I expected. "And where is my father?" Her expression shifted, and something in my chest tightened before she even spoke.
The answer is the same for both.
A pause.
I didn't come for you sooner because your father was killed.
The words hit like a physical blow. I stared at her. No. It came out instinctively. Immediate. Firm. My father didn't die, I said, shaking my head. He abandoned me. My mother was in labor and he left. He never came back. My voice wavered slightly, but I pushed through it. And even if he did die, what does that have to do with you not coming for me? Her gaze softened, deeply, painfully.
No, child.
She said gently.
My son loved your mother. He would not do that.
A pause.
He is dead.
I shook my head again. No. I refused to accept that, refused to let go of the anger I had held onto for years. Because if he wasn't a coward who abandoned us, then what had he been?
Was the last day he was seen the 3rd month, 21 years ago?
She asked quietly. I stilled. Slowly, I nodded. That was the day I was born, I said. My mother was having a difficult birth. He told my aunt he was going to get a potion to help. My throat tightened, but he never came back. She nodded.
That's because he was killed.
Silence, heavy, crushing.
I felt it,
She added softly.
when his life was taken. Fae feel the death of those they love.
My chest tightened painfully. You said killed, I whispered. Not died. Not an accident. Her gaze hardened slightly.
No, Lysandra.
A pause.
He was killed.
The room felt too small, too quiet.
And that is why he never came back.
She continued.
And why I did not come for you sooner. I was afraid the same thing would happen to you.
Her voice dropped.
That you would be killed too, if they knew of your existence.
I sat there in silence, her words echoing in my mind. The father I had hated, blamed, resented for years, was never a coward, never abandoned me. He had been taken. From us. From me. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to breathe through the weight of it. It explained the tears, the way she had looked at me. If Paloma was right, if I really did look like him, then I wasn't just a granddaughter to her. I was a reminder of everything she had lost. I nodded slowly, trying to process it all. But something still didn't sit right. Something still felt incomplete. But why now? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Why come get me now? She exhaled.
Because of the marriage bargain,
She said.
which I'm sure you now know about.
I nodded.
Oh, good.
She said faintly.
That saves me the trouble of that conversation.
Then her expression shifted again. More serious. Heavy.
The thing neither you nor Nevhan knows is why your father and his father made that agreement.
I know, I said. It's for alliance. She shook her head.
No, my child.
Her gaze locked onto mine.
It is for protection.
I frowned slightly. Confused.
If the weaker person is ever in a life or death situation,
She explained slowly.
the mark will immediately teleport the stronger person to them, no matter where they are, no matter what they are doing.
I blinked. That seems unfair for the stronger person, I said quietly. Her lips curved slightly.
Not quite.
A pause.
When the stronger one is in danger, they gain the power of the weaker one. It amplifies their strength.
I stilled. That would be great and all. Except I have no power, I said. She looked at me and smiled, something knowing in her expression, something that made it clear she understood far more than I did.
Lysandra, child, you might be half human, but you're still a Fae Queen's granddaughter. Trust me, you have power. Not just any power. Great power.
I didn't bother arguing that I didn't.
So when Nevan's father and my son made that agreement, it wasn't just politics.
Her voice softened.
It was protection.
A long silence followed. Then,
Regardless of who killed your father, and regardless of the danger that still may exist.
Her grip tightened around my hand.
I sent for you because it is time to fulfill the bargain.
My chest tightened. And then she delivered the final blow.
Because if it is not fulfilled,
A pause.
the bargain will kill you first, before anyone else could.
Chapter 7. I stared at my grandmother in shock, her words still echoing in my mind, heavy and impossible to fully grasp. Before I could ask anything else, before I could even begin to untangle everything she had just revealed, a knock sounded on the door.
Lysandra, are you there?
Nevan. The door opened and he stepped in, but the moment he saw the queen, he paused, his posture shifting instantly.
Your Majesty, I was just checking if Lysandra was doing good.
My grandmother's entire demeanor changed. The grief was gone, replaced with something lighter, warmer. She smiled at him, bright and almost playful, like the woman from the throne room had never existed.
Nevan, I need you to show her how to harness her power.
She said, then turned to me.
And Lysandra, I'll have to request your presence for dinner every night, so I can get to know my granddaughter even more.
She stood, smoothing her gown as if nothing at all had happened.
Anyway, I'll leave you two together.
Nevan stepped forward slightly.
No, I was just leaving. I need to...
No!
She cut in smoothly.
Stay with your betrothed. Your wedding is next month.
I blinked. Next month?
I want babies walking around by this time next year,
She added casually. I choked. Then she paused and winked.
So start practicing now.
Nevan and I let out a collective groan. But she only laughed, a full, rich, unapologetic sound, and walked out of the room like she hadn't just destroyed whatever dignity I had left. The door closed behind her. And just like that, silence. Nevan shook his head, but there was a smile tugging at his lips, one he didn't quite manage to hide. Then it faded, and his expression turned serious.
Did she tell you everything you needed to know?
I hesitated. Somewhat, I said slowly. I still don't understand why she had to speak to me like that in the throne room, or who killed my father, or even why the courtiers felt so comfortable laughing at me. Their supposed princess, without any fear or shame. Nevan exhaled.
Those answers are connected.
I stilled. He leaned slightly against the table, his arms crossing as if settling into something he had already thought through 100 times.
The Queen is losing political power,
He said.
It started before your father was killed, and it got worse after he died. She has no heir, and without one, there have been conversations.
What kind of conversations? I asked, though I already knew.
About usurping her throne.
The words settled heavy between us.
There is one family in particular,
He continued.
the Barglows. They are powerful. Their political ties rival, if not exceed, my family's. If the Queen is deemed unfit, they would be next in line.
My stomach tightened. And she's being seen as unfit? I asked.
Yes,
A pause.
they say she is getting soft, that she has lost her edge, especially after your father died in human lands.
His gaze flickered to me.
The Fae value strength, control, cruelty with purpose. Consorting with humans is not seen as strength.
I swallowed. So in the throne room,
She had to act cold,
he finished.
cruel, especially toward you, her half-human granddaughter.
I nodded slowly, the pieces finally beginning to fit together. So you think someone from that family killed my father? I asked quietly.
Yes,
The answer came without hesitation.
and that is another reason this marriage bargain is useful.
he continued.
Even if I don't agree with it, my family's power, combined with yours, strengthens the Queen's position. It stabilizes the court.
He stepped closer.
And when we produce heirs,
He added, his voice lowering slightly.
if something happens to you, or to them,
A pause.
it becomes harder to ignore, harder to dismiss.
I frowned slightly.
3 heirs dead would be very difficult to explain away.
A chill ran down my spine. I nodded slowly, absorbing everything he said. Then something clicked. There's another reason the marriage bargain is useful, I said suddenly, his brows furrowed.
What do you mean?
I told him. Everything. About the mark. About what my grandmother said. About the power it carried. He went still. Completely still. Shock flickering across his face in a way I had never seen before.
That explains everything.
I frowned. What do you mean?
That day,
He said slowly.
yesterday, when the draarag attacked you.
His gaze sharpened slightly.
One moment I was nowhere near you, and the next, I was there, freezing it.
My breath caught.
I didn't know how I got there.
He continued.
I thought it was some kind of protection the Queen placed on you.
He shook his head slightly.
But now,
His eyes met mine.
it makes sense.
A pause.
This changes everything.
He straightened. Focused,
All right.
he said.
The Queen wants you prepared before the summer solstice. That's 1 month from now.
My stomach dropped.
I will train you
He continued.
to harness your power before then. During the solstice celebration, it is tradition for nobles to challenge one another.
I already didn't like where this was going,
I guarantee someone from the Barglow family will challenge you,
he added.
publicly, to humiliate you, to prove to everyone that you are weak.
I crossed my arms slightly. And what happens when they're right? I asked.
They won't be,
His tone left no room for doubt.
because you will win.
He said. I stared at him. You expect me to be ready in a month? I asked. To face someone who has trained for years? Someone who has lived for decades? Centuries, even? He stepped closer.
You have raw power, Lysandra.
He said.
You just don't know how to use it yet.
That's not reassuring,
It should be,
he said.
because learning control is easier than gaining power.
I shook my head. But against someone experienced,
With power like yours,
he cut in.
skill becomes secondary.
I still didn't look convinced. He sighed. Then,
Think of it like this.
he said. I narrowed my eyes slightly.
Do you think a 2-year-old draarag fears a 100-year-old ant?
He asked. I blinked. What?
After all,
He continued calmly.
the ant has had years to refine its skill.
I stared at him, then scoffed. That's a terrible comparison. But I couldn't deny it made sense, and he knew it. A small smile tugged at his lips.
You're wrong about one thing.
Nevon said. I frowned. What?
That being half human makes you weaker.
I scoffed. That's what everyone says,
That's because most Fae fight the same way.
he replied.
Their magic is trained, controlled, predictable.
And mine isn't,
No,
he said.
yours won't be.
I stilled slightly.
Humans adapt.
He added.
Fae don't need to. They rely on what they already are. But your magic will change in the middle of a fight. It won't follow what they expect.
A pause.
And that makes you dangerous.
I looked down at my hands. They won't see that.
Good.
I glanced up.
Let them.
I exhaled slowly. And you really think I can beat them?
I know you can.
You're very confident.
I'm right.
I rolled my eyes. You're insufferable.
And you're going to win.
He turned toward the door.
We start tomorrow.
That's barely any time.
It's enough.
And then he kissed my forehead and left. The room felt different after that. Quieter, like something had shifted without asking me first. I stood there for a moment, staring at the door long after it had closed, my thoughts finally catching up. A month ago, I was in a village fetching water, keeping track of supplies, making sure no one went hungry when things ran low, trying, always trying to be useful, to be liked. And now I was supposed to inherit a throne. I should have been overwhelmed, afraid. The weight of it should have crushed me, but it didn't. That was the strange part. I felt settled, because this wasn't new, not really. In the village, I had done this already, not with a crown, not with power, but with responsibility. I had kept things running when no one else bothered to, stepped in when things needed to be done, carried more than anyone ever acknowledged. Even Reven, the village chief, hadn't done half of what I had. The difference was, he was respected for it. And I had done it quietly, not because I had to, but because I wanted to be seen. I exhaled slowly. So no, I wasn't afraid of ruling. Not really. If anything, I was surprised. Still trying to understand how I had gone from being overlooked to being the one everyone would have to look at. Chapter 8. The next week became a blur. Not the kind that fades into nothing, but the kind that fills every inch of your day until there's no space left to think. Mornings began with training. Always training. Nevan would meet me before the sun had fully risen, when the palace was still quiet and the halls felt like they belonged to ghosts instead of courtiers. We would slip away to the same place every time, a secluded courtyard hidden beneath the palace, half underground and forgotten by most. It felt ancient. The stone walls were worn and quiet, the air cooler there, untouched by the constant noise of court life. It was deliberate. If anyone from the Barglow family came looking for me, they would find nothing. No progress, no strength, no threat. They would expect weakness, and when the time came, that expectation would be their mistake.
If they think you're weak,
Nevhan had told me once, arms crossed as he watched me struggle to summon even the smallest spark.
they won't prepare properly.
So I'm a surprise, I had muttered.
You're a weapon.
He corrected calmly. Still, it didn't feel like much of a weapon. I had only managed to summon a small flame, barely more than a flicker. Something that would have been impressive if I were a child playing with candles, but not someone expected to face nobles who had trained for decades, maybe centuries. Every time the flame sputtered and died too quickly, frustration burned hotter than anything I could produce. But Nevhan never lost patience.
Again,
He would say, not irritated, not disappointed, just certain, always certain,
you're getting closer.
even when I didn't believe it, even when I was sure I was failing. His confidence never wavered, and slowly, annoyingly, it started to infect me. Dinner, strangely, became one of the more entertaining parts of my day, because of my grandmother, the Queen, who was far less terrifying in private than she was in court, and far more dangerous in entirely different ways. She was also infuriating and hilarious, and entirely too interested in my personal life.
So,
She would begin, smiling far too innocently.
have you and Nevhan started practicing?
I would freeze mid-bite. Yes, I would answer carefully. Training, obviously. She would sigh dramatically.
Not that kind of practice.
She would say.
I'm talking about the one that gives me airs.
I would choke. Every single time. And somehow, she always looked pleased. One night, though, I didn't let her distract me. There was something that had been sitting in the back of my mind for days, something I couldn't ignore any longer. You said you sent out 2 Fae those years ago? I asked.
Yes,
She responded without hesitation. But I've never seen any of them, I said.
you wouldn't.
She replied.
They glamoured themselves to look human. But trust me, they stayed in your village. They have been reporting to my messengers through the veil.
I blinked. What? Who are they?
They took the appearance of a middle-aged woman and an old man,
She said.
I do not know what names they used in the human lands.
A middle-aged woman, an old man. That could be anyone. There were several people fitting that description. I tried to strain and think harder, and then it hit me. Hela and old Tam. The realization came so suddenly it almost knocked the breath out of me. Hela, who always slipped me extra bread when no one was looking. Old Tam, who would let me sit closer during his stories, his voice softer when he spoke to me. They had always been kind, quietly kind. And I had thought they let it happen, that they stood there and watched as the village gave me away. My throat tightened. They didn't betray me, I whispered.
No.
My grandmother said gently.
They sent you home.
Relief flooded through me so sharply it almost hurt. I told her about them, about the bread, the stories, the small moments of kindness I hadn't understood at the time. She listened, and when I finished, she nodded once.
When we find a loophole around the veil,
She said,
I will reward them greatly.
I smiled. They deserve it. More days passed. And somewhere between exhaustion and repetition, something shifted. Training stopped feeling like something I had to endure, and became something I looked forward to. Part of it was the progress. Small, frustratingly small, but still there. And part of it was Nevhan. There was something deeply unfair about how composed he always looked, even while putting me through relentless training. The way he moved, the way his sleeves shifted when he did, the way his muscles tensed and relaxed like it was nothing at all. It was distracting in a way I refused to acknowledge out loud. It was also very hard to ignore. One morning, everything changed. I had just finished training. Another weak flame, another failure. I was still annoyed about it as Nevhan walked me back to my room, his presence steady beside me, his voice calm as he told me I was improving. I didn't believe him. Not yet. Then a noblewoman passed us, and she didn't just glance at Nevan. She lingered. Her gaze dragged over him slowly, deliberately, like she was already imagining what it would feel like to have him. Something inside me snapped. It wasn't logical. It wasn't even something I understood, but it was immediate, sharp, possessive. Nevhan looked back at her, not with interest, not with flirtation. Just a brief, neutral acknowledgement, like she was nothing more than another person in the corridor. It didn't matter. The fact that he looked at all, my chest tightened. Heat pooled low in my stomach, then surged upward, fast and violent. My breath hitched as something unfamiliar twisted inside me, something raw and instinctive and far too powerful to ignore. I stopped walking. Nevhan noticed immediately.
Lysandra.
I didn't hear the rest, because suddenly I was burning, not metaphorically, not figuratively, burning. Heat rushed through my veins like wildfire, spilling out of me before I could stop it. Flames erupted around us, sharp and wild, licking up the stone walls, curling dangerously close. I sucked in a breath, panic clawing at my throat. I slammed into the fire before I could finish. Cold, precise, immediate. Nevhan. The flames hissed, fought, then died under his control, dissolving into nothing but smoke and the echo of heat still lingering in the air. Silence fell. My heart pounded. I stared at him. He stared at me, and then he laughed. Not shocked, not afraid, relieved, proud.
You did it.
He said, stepping closer, his eyes bright with something almost wild.
I told you you could.
Before I could respond, he pulled me into his arms and lifted me off the ground, spinning me once, like this moment, meant everything. And somehow, it did. A laugh escaped me, breathless and unsteady, but real. When he set me down, the world didn't feel quite right anymore. Or maybe I didn't. His hands lingered on my waist a second longer than necessary. His gaze dropped to my mouth, then back to my eyes. Something shifted, something deeper than before, and then he kissed me. There was no hesitation, no warning, just heat. I gasped against him, my hands gripping his arms without thinking, my entire body reacting before my mind could catch up. This wasn't like the kisses I remembered, awkward, shallow, forgettable. This felt consuming, like the same fire I had just lost control of had changed form and settled somewhere inside my chest. When he pulled back, I was still trying to breathe, still trying to understand, still trying not to lean back into him. His voice dropped, softer now.
I've wanted to do that,
he said, eyes still locked on mine.
since the first time I laid eyes on you,
A pause.
even when you were covered in grime.
I blinked, once, twice, then narrowed my eyes. That, I said slowly, is the worst way anyone has ever tried to be romantic. His lips curved, unapologetic, and from that day onward, everything changed. At practice, I stopped trying to force the fire. Instead, I chased the feeling. That sharp, possessive heat, the jealousy, the anger, the something deeper I didn't fully understand. Every time I let myself feel it, really feel it, the fire answered. Not weak, not flickering, but sure, controlled, powerful. The first time it happened again, I almost didn't believe it. The second time, I laughed. By the third, Nevin was watching me like he had been right all along.
I told you.
He murmured once, circling me slowly as flames curled steadily in my palm.
It was never about power. It was about unlocking it.
And I was, slowly, dangerously. I started learning new techniques, how to shape the fire, how to hold it without letting it consume everything around me, how to call it without losing myself to it. And through it all, Nevhan stayed close. Too close sometimes. Especially when he would lean in just slightly, his voice dropping near my ear, correcting my stance, adjusting my hands, his touch lingering just long enough to make my focus slip.
You're distracted,
he would say. You're the distraction, I would shoot back. He never denied it. And the worst part, he enjoyed it. Somewhere between the training and the teasing, between the sparks of fire and the sparks between us, we became close. Not just allies, not just betrothed. Something more. Something that made my chest tighten in a way that had nothing to do with power. Unfortunately. My grandmother noticed. Of course she did. And she had not stopped beaming ever since, or winking. Always winking.
I see progress,
she would say sweetly at dinner, her eyes flicking between us. I would immediately regret sitting down. Nevhan, traitor that he was, would just smile. One evening, between her endless satisfaction and my growing embarrassment, she finally said it plainly.
The wedding will take place a week after the summer solstice.
I froze slightly. A week. That close. That real. But strangely, that wasn't what unsettled me. It was the solstice itself, the challenge, the moment where everything would be decided. I wasn't afraid of the wedding. I wasn't even afraid of Nevhan. I was afraid of failing, of standing in front of the court, and proving them right. Chapter 9. The morning of the summer solstice arrived too quickly. Paloma moved around me like a storm contained in silk, her hands swift and precise as she adjusted the final layers of my gown. The fabric was light but intricate, woven with faint threads that shimmered when they caught the light. It felt nothing like the clothes I had worn in the village, nothing like the life I had lived before.
Stand still,
She murmured, though I hadn't moved. I am standing still.
You're breathing too loudly.
I blinked. That's not something I can fix. She clicked her tongue softly but didn't argue, stepping back to inspect me. Her eyes scanned every detail, my hair, my posture, the way the fabric fell against my frame.
Good,
She said finally.
You look like someone they won't be able to ignore.
I didn't know if that was comforting or terrifying. When she finished, I stepped out into the corridor. Naven was already there, waiting. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His gaze moved over me slowly, taking everything in, and something in his expression softened in a way that made my chest tighten.
You look...
He started, then stopped, like he didn't want to say too much. Say it, I said. He huffed lightly.
dangerous.
I raised a brow. That's not what you were going to say,
No,
he admitted.
but it's what matters today.
We walked side by side, the palace louder than usual, filled with movement, voices, anticipation. Every step toward the solstice hall felt heavier than the last. Before we reached the entrance, Nevin stopped. I turned to him. What is it? He hesitated. That alone made my stomach tighten. Nevhan didn't hesitate.
I wasn't planning on saying this today.
He said, his voice quieter now, more serious than I had ever heard it.
But I don't want to wait.
Something in my chest shifted. Nevhan.
I've fallen in love with you.
The words landed clean, with no hesitation. I stared at him. For a second, everything else, the palace, the noise, the solstice, faded.
You don't have to say anything.
He added quickly.
I just needed you to know.
I shook my head slightly. No, I said, my voice softer than I intended. I do. He stilled. I've fallen in love with you too. Something in his expression broke open. He stepped closer and kissed me. Certain, warm, grounding. When he pulled back, there was a faint smile on his lips.
You know,
He said lightly.
I spent years resenting my father for this arrangement.
I huffed softly. That's reassuring,
I thought I was being forced into something I didn't want.
he continued.
And now
He shook his head slightly, almost amused at himself.
I can't thank him enough for bringing you into my life.
I didn't trust myself to respond to that. So I didn't. Instead, I said, You're going to be there, right? His expression sharpened.
The entire time.
He said.
No matter what happens.
I nodded. That was enough. We walked into the ball hand in hand, and the moment we did, I felt it. The shift. Heads turned. Every gaze towards us, whether they meant to look or not. The music didn't stop. The conversations didn't fully die, but they softened, warped, twisted around the fact that I had entered. I could hear the whispers almost immediately.
Half-human.
That's her.
The princess.
The unfit heir.
I kept my chin lifted, my grip on Nevhan steady, my steps measured and deliberate. If they were waiting for hesitation, for weakness, for even the smallest crack in my composure, they would not find it. The announcer's voice rang out, sharp and commanding, cutting through the room with practiced ease.
Princess Lysandra, granddaughter of the Queen, heir to the throne.
Every eye settled on me fully then. No more pretending, no more half-hidden glances. I stepped forward, letting Nevan's hand slip from mine as I moved into the center of the space, feeling the weight of their attention press against my skin. This time, when I bowed, I did it perfectly. Not a second too early, not a second too late. My back straight, my movements controlled, my timing exact. I had practiced it until it was muscle memory, until it no longer felt like performance but precision. When I rose, I didn't look away. I met their gazes, one by one where I could, and for a moment, just a moment, the whispers faltered. Nevan moved away then, taking his place beside my grandmother, and I felt the absence of his hand immediately, even though I didn't look at him. I didn't need to. He had told me he would be there, that he would stay. That was enough. I let that settle somewhere steady in my chest as I turned back to the room, and then I heard his voice.
Well?
Lion Barglow said, stepping forward like the space belonged to him, like this had always been his stage.
At least she knows how to bow.
There was quiet laughter at that, not loud or bold, but enough. Enough to remind me exactly what they thought of me. His eyes dragged over me, slow and unimpressed, like he was already bored of whatever this was going to be.
I challenge her!
My pulse didn't spike. That surprised me. If anything, everything inside me went still. I accept, I said, my voice steady, carrying further than I expected it to. The floor shifted beneath us, the ballroom opening into the arena with a smooth, practiced ease that told me this had been done countless times before. This was tradition, spectacle, entertainment, and now I was part of it. We stepped into the center, the crowd forming a ring around us, their anticipation thick and hungry. Lion didn't rush. He circled me slowly, his posture relaxed, confident in a way that came from years of doing this. Of winning.
You should have stayed quiet,
he said casually.
Hidden behind the Queen's sympathy. This will be embarrassing for you.
I didn't respond. I didn't need to. He moved first, fast and precise, his magic striking out in a sharp, controlled arc that I barely avoided. The force of it brushed past me, close enough that I felt the bite of it against my skin. Another strike came immediately after, and then another, each one clean, practiced, predictable in its precision, but overwhelming in its speed. I moved, adjusted, reacted, just as Nevan had said I would. Not cleanly, but faster each time. My body learning as I went, adapting to the rhythm of his attacks even as he pressed harder. The first time the fire came, it wasn't hesitant. It surged. Hot, real, alive in a way that made my breath catch. Lion paused for half a second, just long enough for me to push forward, letting the flames follow me, letting them answer instead of forcing them to appear. They weren't refined like his magic. They didn't move with that same controlled elegance. But they moved. They responded. And for the first time, he stepped back. The murmurs in the crowd died. I felt it then, that shift. Not victory, not yet, but possibility. I pressed harder, the fire building, growing stronger with each movement, each adjustment, each instinct I didn't question. I was winning. And then everything went wrong. Another Barglow stepped forward, then another, and another. I stilled, my focus breaking for just a second. "What are you doing?" I demanded, the words sharper than I intended. Lion smiled.
No one said this would be fair.
They moved together. Too many angles, too many attacks, too fast. My fire surged in response, but it wasn't enough. Not against all of them. The heat around me intensified, thick and suffocating, my control slipping as I tried to defend, to strike, to adapt all at once. I staggered back as one of them broke through, my flames flaring wildly now, no longer precise, no longer steady. This wasn't a challenge anymore. This was execution. I turned instinctively, searching for Nevhan. He wasn't there. My stomach dropped so sharply it felt like I had fallen. He promised he would be here. So where was he? The fire flickered, just for a second, just enough. One of them struck, and I barely managed to block it. Another followed immediately after, and another, each hit pushing me further back, each movement slower now, heavier, harder to keep up with. I couldn't hold this. I couldn't. This is how I die. The thought came clear, cold, and then something inside me answered. Not fear, not panic. Something else. A surge moved through me, sharp and sudden, but not like before. Not just heat, cold and ice. It cut through me, clean and precise, threading itself through the fire instead of fighting it. It looked exactly like the ice Nivhan summoned. My breath caught as the sensation spread, familiar and undeniable. My flames moved with the ice. They burned brighter, hotter, but somehow also colder. The bar glows hesitated. I didn't. The power moved fast, faster than anything I had done before, my body following without hesitation, without doubt. The fire and the ice lashed out, but it didn't just burn or freeze. It tore through their defenses, through them. One fell, then another. They tried to regroup, to counter, but it was too late. The power didn't stop. It didn't hesitate. It didn't care. Lion's expression changed, the confidence cracking just enough for me to see it before everything ended. Then he was gone too. The arena fell silent. I stood there, my chest rising and falling, the strange, burning cold power still flickering at my fingertips, my mind struggling to catch up with what had just happened. That power wasn't just mine. That wasn't... The world tilted. The crowd blurred. The ground beneath me shifted like it was no longer solid, and before I could make sense of any of it, I wasn't in the arena anymore. Chapter 10. The world did not fade this time. It snapped. One moment I was in the arena, my lungs burning, my veins still full of fire and something colder, sharper, not entirely mine. The next, the ground lurched beneath me and I stumbled into darkness so sudden it made my head spin. For one disorienting heartbeat, I thought I had died. Then I heard breathing, not mine, someone else's, low, controlled, familiar. I lifted my head and froze. Nevhan stood only a few paces in front of me, his body held rigid, a knife pressed to his throat. The blade sat just beneath his jaw, so close that even in the dim light I could see the thin line where it bit into his skin. The man behind him held him with practiced ease, one arm locked across his chest, the other hand steady on the knife, like he had no doubt in the world that he could end him before I took another step.
Step closer,
the man said, his voice almost bored.
And I'll slit his throat.
My entire body went cold. Not the sharp cold of power, not the clean, strange cold that had threaded through my flames in the arena. This was something uglier, heavier, the kind that starts in the stomach and spreads until your limbs feel full of stone. I couldn't breathe for a second, couldn't think. I just stared at the blade at Nevin's throat and the awful, impossible fact that he was here. Not beside my grandmother where I had last seen him, but in front of me like bait in a trap I had already stepped into. He met my eyes. There was no panic in his face, only tension, calculation, a warning. Do not rush.
Looks like my family still can't do anything right,
the man said. Something in his voice caught against a place in my memory and scraped hard. Familiar. Wrong. He stepped more fully out of the shadows, and the light found his face. My breath left me, because I knew who that was. Reven, The village chief smiled. At least, the man I had known as the village chief smiled. The shape of him was still there, the broad face, the posture, the calm authority he had always worn like a second skin. But now that I was looking at him with new eyes, I saw it. The glamour. Not broken, not dropped fully, but slipping just enough for the truth beneath it to show. The stillness in his features was too deliberate, the sharpness in his gaze too old. The air around him felt wrong in the way all Fae things did when they were no longer pretending to be harmless. He had to be half Fae. It was the only way he could have been here, and also in the human world. The veil wouldn't allow a full human or a full Fae go through untouched.
I wondered how long it would take you,
he said mildly. I stared at him, my mind trying to pull too many truths together at once. Revan, half Fae. He was half Fae. That was the only way he could be here, holding Nevhan at knife point. My heart pounded so hard it felt painful. No, I whispered. But I wasn't denying what I saw. I was denying how much of my life it rewrote in a single moment.
Yes,
he said,
though not fully, half like you, as I'm sure you figured out, by my presence here in the Faelands.
The words made my skin crawl. I had spent years being made to feel like my blood was some strange flaw no one wanted to look at for too long. Hearing it from him, from the man who had condemned me with such calm, righteous cruelty, felt filthy. "What are you doing?" I asked, though I already knew the answer had nothing to do with Nevin alone. This had been planned, carefully, cruelly. Revan's expression shifted, not softer, never softer, but something uglier moved beneath it, old resentment, old humiliation.
What I should have done a long time ago,
he said.
What I've tried to do a long time ago.
His mouth curved.
Do you think I wanted to wait this long?
My fingers curled into my palms. What are you talking about? He laughed once, low and humorless.
You really never saw anything, did you?
I didn't answer.
The Barglows threw me away,
he said.
Half human, an embarrassment, a stain. They hid me, then abandoned me. Decades ago.
His voice remained calm, but there was something unstable beneath it now, like rage pressed flat for so many years it had become part of the shape of him.
So I did what I had to do. I took another life from this family. I killed your father.
The world tilted. For a moment, I heard nothing at all. Not Nevhan's breathing. Not my own. Not the wind against the stone. Just those words, slamming into every part of me at once. I killed your father. My throat burned. I had imagined that moment 1,000 ways after my grandmother told me the truth. Imagined the faceless enemy. Imagined the fear, the rage, the satisfaction of finally knowing. But this was worse than faceless. This was a man who had watched me grow up, a man who had spoken to me with grave kindness, a man who had stood in the square while they gave me away and acted as though he had no choice. He had killed my father, then spent years standing in the place where a village should have protected me, waiting.
I did it to prove to them that I wasn't weak.
He continued, almost conversational now.
That I was useful, ruthless, worth something.
His eyes glinted.
But they still didn't accept me.
My stomach twisted, not with pity, never that, with disgust. All those years, all that rot inside him, and still he had bent himself around their judgment like a starving dog waiting for scraps.
So now,
he said, pressing the blade a fraction closer to Nevhan's throat.
I'll kill your lover, and maybe then they'll finally see me for what I am.
The fear that had held me still changed shape. It hardened. Nevin's jaw tightened, but he did not move. He was waiting for an opening. He knew the same thing I did now. Reven did not want a quick kill. He wanted to be witnessed. He wanted his pain admired. He wanted someone, anyone, to finally tell him he had done enough. A strange calm moved through me. There's no need. Reven's eyes flicked to mine.
What?
I swallowed once, then lifted my chin. There's no need to prove yourself to them. His brows drew together.
Why is that?
Because I already killed all of them. The words landed like a blow. For the first time since I had appeared, his face changed completely. Not anger, not satisfaction. Shock. Real, stunned shock. The kind that empties a face before rage can fill it again. His hand loosened. Just enough. Nevin moved immediately. He twisted sharply, knocking the blade aside as he drove back into Reven and broke free in one clean motion. Steel hit the ground. They collided immediately, fast and brutal. No wasted movement. Reven recovered quickly, but he had lost control of the moment, and that was all it took. I didn't think. I moved. The knife was already in my hand by the time I reached him. He was focused on Nevin, pushing forward, trying to regain dominance. He never saw me. I drove the blade into his back. Deep. His body jerked, breath catching in a broken, surprised sound. Blood slipped from his mouth as his strength gave out all at once. He dropped. I let go of the knife and stepped back, my chest rising steadily. You spent years stabbing people in the back, I said, my voice cold. Looks like it found its way to yours. His body twitched once, then was still. Silence spread slowly after that, thick and unnatural. I could hear my own breathing, the sound of blood dripping from the blade. Somewhere far away, the pulse in my ears. I had killed him, not a monster in the woods, not a nameless enemy in an arena. Reven, the man who had raised his voice in the village square and decided who lived with bread and who didn't. The man I had once wanted to impress. I thought I would feel cleaner when he died, lighter, vindicated. Instead, I felt split open, relieved, sick, furious, grieving something I had not known needed grieving. Not Reven, never him, but the years, the lies, the girl I had been in that village, still trying to earn tenderness from people who had already decided what I was worth. Nevin said my name softly. I turned to him immediately. He was alive. The cut on his throat was small, more blood than danger, but the sight of it still made something inside me recoil. Then the other realization crashed over me. I frowned. My grandmother said... My voice sounded strange to my own ears. She said that when the weaker one is in danger, the stronger one is pulled to them. Nevhan wiped the blood from his throat with the back of his hand, watching me closely. When the draarag was about to kill me, I said, my confusion growing as I spoke, you came to me. You teleported to me. I took a step toward him. But I came to you just now. That doesn't make sense. Reven was about to kill you. I should not have been the one pulled here. Something warm and almost unbearably tender moved through his expression.
That's because with the draarag,
he said quietly,
I was the stronger one.
I shook my head. And now? A small smile touched his mouth, though there was exhaustion in it. Pride, too.
Now you are, my love.
No. The denial came quickly, almost angrily. No, that's not possible. He took a slow breath.
During the battle, when the Barglows had all come at you, I felt it.
Felt what?
My power leaving me.
I stared. He went on before I could interrupt.
That is what happens when the stronger one is close to death. Their power does not just vanish. It seeks survival. It moves from the weaker one to strengthen the stronger one.
My thoughts stumbled over the words. And you're saying that happened to me?
I am.
I looked down at my hands as if I might still see it there. Fire. Ice. I had thought in the arena that I was losing my mind, that my own power had simply broken into some new shape under pressure. Then I remembered. The exact moment. The barglows closing in. My fire failing. The certainty that I was about to die. And then the cold, not outside me, inside, his ice woven through my flames. I looked back up at him, stunned. That was you,
It was my power,
he corrected gently.
but it obeyed you.
I shook my head again, slower this time, because part of me was already remembering too much. The way the fire had changed, the way it had listened faster, struck harder, become something beyond what I had trained for, something terrifying. That would mean, I swallowed, that I'm stronger than you. His smile deepened a little, pride shining through his eyes.
Yes,
I stared at him in disbelief. He should have argued, should have soothed it away, should have laughed and told me not to be ridiculous. Instead, he stood there bleeding lightly from the throat and looking at me like I had become exactly what he always said I would. I don't know what to do with that, I admitted.
you don't have to do anything with it tonight.
He stepped closer, slow enough to let me move away if I wanted. I didn't.
You survived. So did I. That is enough.
Epilogue. 5 years later. The palace had never been this loud. I stood at the edge of the courtyard, watching 6 small bodies tear across polished stone like a storm no one could contain. Laughter bounced off the high walls, sharp and bright, followed immediately by shouting, arguing, and the unmistakable sound of something being knocked over. 2 sets of triplets, 6 children. I exhaled slowly through my nose. This, I said, not taking my eyes off them, is your fault. Nevhan, standing beside me, didn't even try to hide his amusement.
I don't recall forcing anything.
You encouraged it, I replied.
I supported it.
That is the same thing.
It is not.
One of them, our second son, I think, darted past us at full speed, nearly colliding with my leg before twisting away at the last second. Another chased after him, shouting something completely incoherent, while the youngest of the girls attempted to climb onto a stone ledge she absolutely should not have been climbing. Don't! I started. Too late. She slipped, and didn't fall. A small flicker of flame steadied beneath her feet for just a second, just enough to catch her balance before it vanished like it had never been there. I went still. Nevin did too. We both watched her carefully as she grinned to herself and continued climbing like nothing had happened.
Well,
He said quietly.
that answers that.
I didn't respond immediately. Fire. And likely more. It had taken me years to understand what I carried, what I had become. And now it lived in them too. Messier, wilder, untrained. I dragged a hand down my face. This is going to be a problem,
It's going to be interesting.
he corrected. It's going to burn the palace down.
Not if we teach them properly.
6 of them, Nevin. He smiled slightly.
We've handled worse.
I gave him a look. He didn't even flinch. A crash sounded from the far side of the courtyard. I didn't turn. Grandmother, I called. She was already watching. Of course she was. She stood a few steps away, hands folded neatly, looking far too pleased with herself as she observed the chaos unfolding like it was some sort of performance arranged for her entertainment.
Yes, dear.
I gestured broadly to the 6 children currently ignoring every rule that had ever been spoken to them. You wanted this.
I did.
Then you can help with it. Her lips curved.
I already am.
That is not help, I said flatly. That is watching.
That is supervision.
That is not the same thing.
It is when you are the queen.
I narrowed my eyes at her. You were the one who kept insisting Nevin and I needed to secure the future, I reminded her. Well, the future is currently climbing walls and setting things on fire. A small laugh escaped her.
And it's thriving.
I sighed. You're helping. She tilted her head.
Am I?
Yes.
No.
Yes, I repeated, more firmly this time. She watched me for a moment longer, then finally relented with a soft, amused exhale.
Very well.
One of the boys ran straight toward her. Without even looking, she caught him mid-motion and turned him around like it was nothing.
Not that way,
she said lightly. He obeyed instantly. I blinked, then slowly turned to her. You've been hiding that. She smiled.
You never asked.
I shook my head, but I couldn't stop the small smile that followed. The noise in the courtyard softened slightly after that. Not quieter, never quiet, but contained. Less destruction. Slightly. I leaned back against the stone railing, letting myself breathe for a moment. 5 years. 5 years since everything changed. The Barglows were gone. Not just defeated, gone. What remained of their name had been erased piece by piece, their influence stripped from the court until there was nothing left to hold on to. No quiet alliances, no hidden loyalties. No one left to finish what Revan had started. My father's name had been restored. That had mattered more than I expected. Not for the court. For me. The truth had settled something I didn't realize had been breaking inside me for years. He hadn't left. He hadn't abandoned us. He had been taken, and now he was remembered the way he should have been. I glanced toward the palace doors briefly. My mother's and aunt's ashes lived here now, not hidden, not broken, healing. Slowly, but truly. That, too, had been something I hadn't known how much I needed until I had it.
You're thinking again,
Nevin said quietly. I looked at him. I rule. That requires thinking.
You disappear when you do it.
I huffed softly. I'm right here. He studied me for a second, then nodded like that was enough. It always was with him.
I was right.
He added. About what?
You.
I rolled my eyes slightly. You're going to need to be more specific.
You won,
he said simply. I looked back at the courtyard, at the 6 children running through it like they owned everything they touched, at my grandmother who now, finally, had 2 of them firmly under control, at the life I had somehow built out of something that had once felt like it would swallow me whole. I didn't win, I said after a moment. His brows lifted slightly. I survived, I corrected, and then I made something out of it. His expression softened, but there was pride in it.
That sounds like winning to me.
I didn't argue, because maybe he wasn't wrong. A small body crashed into my side, wrapping arms around my waist without warning. I looked down. One of the girls grinned up at me, completely unapologetic.
Mother, look!
I followed her pointing finger just in time to see 2 of her brothers attempting something that was absolutely going to end badly. I sighed, then straightened. We're going to have to divide them, I muttered. Nevin laughed quietly.
Strategically?
Survival, I corrected. He stepped closer, his hand brushing mine briefly before he looked out at the courtyard again.
They'll be strong,
he said. They already are, I replied. There was no fear in that anymore. Just certainty. The fire in them didn't scare me. The ice didn't either. Because I knew what it meant now. Not destruction, not chaos, potential. I looked at Nevin. You stayed. I said quietly.
I said I would.
He had. Through everything. That had never changed. Somewhere behind us, another loud crash sounded. This time I did turn and started walking toward it. Your turn, I said over my shoulder.
I disagree.
You don't get to. He sighed, but followed anyway. And as the noise, the laughter, and the chaos closed around us again, I didn't feel overwhelmed. I felt complete.